Welcome back to Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Elena Saradidis.
And Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And today we're with one of my favorite guests. I'm going to say it, and I'm sure I'm going to get hate for it. Chris Slightham, the president of Royal LePage Signature. We're going to talk all things market trends.
Absolutely, because the fall is trending, no pun intended. And I think people are just struggling to know what to think, what to expect. Should they buy now? Should they wait? Why is one market, the condo market specifically, acting one way? Why is the freehold market? I mean, just everything. So let's dive into the fall, which is the market we're dealing with right now, and a lot of trend lines that are kind of hard for people to understand and make sense of.
Well, it's a lot of information to digest, right? And if you're not doing it every single day like you two are, you know, it's not always easy to try to interpret what's going on out there. So we love to chat about it and give our insight and our perspective of a number of years of being in the business, and hopefully it's helpful.
Absolutely. So where should we start? Because it's the fall market is not exactly a easy thing to. You look like you got a smile. So where
I
are we
always look
kicking?
like I'm about to jump out of my seat.
Where are we kicking this
Why
off?
don't we start off with the condo market? We'll see what's going on there from the buyer and the seller perspective, and then we'll move on from there. So, Chris, what are your thoughts? Would you sell your condo right now? Would you not?
It's a great question, Ellen. I think it depends, right? It depends on how long you've owned the condo for, what your needs are, what your future plans are. But if people are wondering, you know, is now the best time to sell? Well, condo values aren't terrible. It's just there happens to be a lot of choice out there. So that you're not maybe maximizing your sale price right at the moment, but it's really not far off of where it should be. There's just a lot of choice. So it might take a little bit longer, or you might think, oh gosh, my neighbor got a little bit more than I seem to be able to get. Do I want to wait till some of the inventory gets absorbed over the next, I don't know, 6, 12 months, you name it, whatever timeline you feel is, you know, appropriate? Or, you know what, I've owned this condo for 10 years. I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. I've made money on it. I've paid it down. I've done all the right things. And I'm ready to step up into my next real estate, you know, step, or I'm moving, or life circumstances. So it really depends on the situation. But personally, I don't love selling real estate at all. I know people are like, gosh, what do you mean you don't sell anything? No, I would keep it is what I would
like,
do,
you know.
right? Like I would keep it if I could. If my circumstances allowed, I would personally keep it and put a tenant in it if I needed more space and it was sort of that life cycle that I'm in that I needed to move. I would keep it and put a tenant in and leverage it and go buy something else.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story.
Well, I think the important thing in real estate, and this kind of taps into a little bit of, I think, what you're kind of talking to and indicating is, in the thought of keeping real estate, the trend lines, I think, are what are so important to understand. And I think people can get stuck in this little moment of time, which right now is the fall market. And to your point, as you said, there's a lot of choice out there. So if you're selling a condo, you are one of many. And unless you're very unique, very specific, very niche, you're a tough sell right now. But when it comes to kind of looking at real estate in the long, you know, time horizon and perspective, I think that's where your real expertise comes in on the hold, and where, you know, this is just a little bump in that graph, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's been, to your point, there's been bumps in the graphs for decades and decades and decades, right? There seems to be something every time. Really, it's something different every time, ultimately, but the effect is the same. You know, real estate accelerates, something happens, and it slows down. It accelerates, something happens, and it slows down. But the overall trend over the last 40-something years that we've been following it with the Toronto Real Estate Board stats, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board has average sale price has been going up at almost 7% a year throughout all those. So if you average out all those ups and downs, all that, you know, like heart monitor bouncing around, right? It's been about 6.8% on average for 44 years since 1980. So, you know, if you think about that, sure, we're down from February of 2022, but February 2022 was kind of got ahead of schedule for a whole bunch of reasons as well. So that was kind of a false, you know, inflated market at that moment. But we're not really down from where we should be. If you bought 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we do the averages from those moments in time, and it kind of puts you right in where average sale prices are today. So this is kind of like normal.
Yeah, and I think that's the big piece when we say normal, because I mean, I've had this happen, I'm sure you have, where clients will say, well, I've lost so much money from this person's sale, as if they had the money in their pocket and someone physically took it from them just because somebody else got a certain amount of money, to your point, in 2022 at an unprecedented kind of market high. Okay, it was never your money to begin with. When you sell your property, that is your profit at that point in time.
That's right.
And so I think understanding that and looking at that and recognizing trend lines, I think, is super important, especially in deciphering this market.
So I think the other question, and this one's going to be something that I hear on a day-to-day basis, sellers will be like, well, if I'm not going to get the most amount of money now, I'll just wait a year and sell in a year. And I know my answer to them, but I'm interested in knowing, Chris, what would you say to someone that says, like, I'm just going to hold off for one more year and I'll sell next year and I'll make so much more money because I've waited?
And that's, it's great. And again, I'm a big fan of holding real estate for a long time. So, great if you can wait. But what are you really looking to achieve is the question I would ask. What is more money in your mind? Like, is it 10% more? Is it 20% more? Is it 4 or 5% more? Because that's probably more where it's in line. Like, as we just said, real estate goes up at, on average 6 to 7% a year over time. The Bank of Canada is not looking, like, their strategy is not to have real estate get super expensive. We talk about it all the time. Like, real estate is not cheap in our country. We understand that. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, but that's kind of the fact. So I don't think the Bank of Canada is looking to create a stimulated environment where people are out, like, buying, like, in a frenzy like they did in 21 and 22. That's not the goal. So the goal ultimately, if they have anything to do with it or can manage it this way, would be low single-digit growth for the next little while. So, cool. You own a great home, stay where you are, enjoy every minute of it. But if you're saying, if your number in your mind is, 10 or 15% more than you are today, that's like years away, like normal years away, like normal growth years away, 2, 3, 4, maybe, depending on how things go, years away, and great. But if that doesn't fit your timeline, then, what I like about today, we all know, 24 months ago, we were up in arms about the fact that there was no inventory.
None.
There was nothing available. Like, buyers are like scrounging. They were paying, arguably a lot of money for things because that's all that was available. Well, now you've got a bit of choice, right? Prices have pulled back and interest rates have come down a fair amount, actually, since 1 year ago this month. So you've got a really nice combination of factors in place that if you're looking, it's not just about what you're selling, it's also where are you going. And I would really take that into account when you're thinking about your plans. And, do I wait a year? Sure you can. Like, no harm. I don't think there's harm in waiting a year, but are you expecting a big chunk more in a year from now? That, I think, would be, I don't see that kind of, rapid growth. And I hope, I'm no disrespect to all the homeowners out there that would like to see 10 or 15% more next year. It's not healthy from a sustainability standpoint.
But I also think what's nice about this market, and a bit to kind of what you were saying, if this is the time to be selling, this is the time to be selling. If it's circumstantial in your life, is there's also the ability to actually move laterally in the market. Because I think what was so terrifying, rewind a few years ago, was it was almost like a week to a week or a month to a month, you could be transacting in a completely different market that was taking off exponentially more than the market you had just sold in or just transacted in. And so at least you've also got the ability to say, okay, to your point, okay, I've made good money, it's circumstantial, it's time to move, whatever it looks like. Okay, great. But I know with, I don't want to say complete certainty, but as much certainty as one could have, that then you're selling or buying in pretty much the same market.
Mm-hmm. It's nice, right? You're not feeling that sense of pressure.
Yeah.
I think what people need to remember too, if they're planning to sell now or sell in a year from now and it's an investment property or something like that, how much money are you going to kick in for the rest of that year before you have to sell it? Mm-hmm. And does the math make sense? Like, if you are going to make a 4 or 5% return at the end of the year, but you had to kick in whatever that profit was for the whole entire year, was it worth you taking out the money now or worth you taking out in a year from now? So, like, you have to run your numbers if your plan is to transact in this market and see what the best option is for you.
And especially if you're an investor, I think you've got to be mindful of all the various calculations that you need to make on capital gains and taxes and all the rest. I mean, it's not as straightforward as it was. So understanding that is important. And I mean, I think if life circumstances are causing you to move and you're not an investor, that's something that you're going to know probably in your heart of hearts what the right move is. No one can make that choice for you, but you'll know, I think, what that right choice looks like.
So let's talk about the fun topic.
Uh-oh.
Buyers in this market. And I say it's fun because I think buyers are like kids in a candy shop right now. Like there's so many options. There's a lot more inventory now on the market, and they have they have choices.
See, I think they're lost, to be honest with you.
Because of so many options?
Yeah, that's my experience. I see a lot of buyers where they're just kind of like, not to say that I want the pace of the old market back, because I don't. That was not sustainable. Having said that, I find with so many choices and so many options and new product coming every week, it's kind of hard to have that, cadence to say, okay, it's time now, or this is the one.
Sense of urgency.
Exactly, sense of urgency. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think you're both right. I think I like choice. As a consumer, it's nice to have some choice out there in the marketplace, but we can also get caught up with too much choice, and then we're kind of frozen in our decision making. And really, if you look at it, today is when you should be in the market buying. Like if you
100%.
look at the charts that we study regularly, and we look at the point at which the market is at, you should be in the market buying and looking for opportunities, because we're just in a moment here where just before rates get a little even better, I mean, they've come down, 5-year money in fixed mortgage rates in September of 2023 were around 6%. And today they're getting close to 4%. I've actually just heard this weekend that there might be a bank out there that's offering renewals at 4% for 5 years. Now, I don't know what the qualification requirements are. I don't know the details. And so I'm not going to name the bank, but I'm suggesting that's where mortgage rates are going. So we did a rough calculation this morning, actually, just because I was curious, what kind of purchasing power does that give you? Well, it gives you almost 20% more purchasing power with the same budget today at 4% money versus 6% money last year, this time
20%.
last year. 20% more purchasing power with the same budget.
Wow.
So, and this is just happening. Mortgage rates have dropped 30 basis points in the last 15 days. So this news really isn't fully out there yet. It's just starting. There's just being, conversations like this are starting. There's starting to see a little bit of news in the headlines about where rates are becoming more and more competitive as more and more buyers start to go, oh, wait a second, 3.99 for 3-year, or in some cases 5-year. Oh, we might, we've been holding off, but that number starts to sound interesting. Well, the more and more people, all of a sudden the inventory gets eaten up, and now you're back to where we were with higher prices and no choice. So, as a buyer,
This is the best time.
Yeah, it is.
If I was a buyer, and God knows if Dan would let me, I'd be the buyer. Dan's kind of cut me off, but I'd be buying everything left, right, and center. Negotiation is back on the table. I love the fact that we can bring in conditions and terms that weren't seen as much. I called you the other day and I was 15-day finance condition on business days. Do you think I could pull it off?
Yeah.
And guess what? It got pulled off. 15-day finance condition.
Yeah.
How many people were doing that?
24, 48 hours. Best case,
100%.
best case, if you could get the condition through. Yeah.
But guess what? It happened. So if you are a buyer in this market and you see something you like it's bad to say, but what are you waiting for? Get it for the best price you could possibly get before things change. Yeah. Negotiate. Yeah. It's the time to steal property. Oh my God, all my sellers are going to be like, what is she talking about? But
well, if you don't have to sell though.
And you know me, I don't sell, I collect.
Yeah.
I'm a collector.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the other thing too that's also so important in this, because I feel like some people listening might be like, wait a second, but I'm trying to buy a house and it's actually competitive, is I think even within all of this, you still have micro markets. So there is the greater market, of course, that is trending with more options and more product and more everything, but there are also certain neighborhoods where no matter what is happening, there's just not enough supply. So in some cases, you frankly don't have the choice that other buyers might be having. And I feel like I've had this conversation with some people where they're like, great, it's so nice that this person has 12 properties to see on Saturday, but I'm sitting here hoping to see one. And by the time Saturday rolls around, it's gone.
But guess what? They also had less competition. So yes, it was a hotter market in their little pocket. But the same thing, the same concerns we were talking about. Buyers are slow to put their number in. That's what they're seeing too. Like that wouldn't have lasted until Saturday in a hot market. That would have been sold day one on the market or like a few hours on the market. Now they do have options. So still get in your car and go see the property as soon as it hits the market. Don't drag your feet. And this is the key factor when you come to buying property. The longer you wait to put in an offer, the more people saw the property. So eventually you might end up being competing without even the need to have been competing.
For sure.
And you could have gotten it for less. And that's the conversation I've had with a lot of buyers is, okay, we can take our time. We can come back next weekend. We can come back next week. But keep in mind, during that time period, someone else might have seen it. And then we're competing. And our leverage goes away the moment there's another offer at the table.
For sure. Yeah, always does.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, people listening are like, yeah, but you guys are salespeople. You're selling real estate. Of course you're going to say that. And I get it. Look, it's tough. Like us at our company, like we like to educate. I mean, that's really our focus. And like, I wouldn't suggest like, take it for what it's worth, folks. Like if you want to buy. If you don't, that's okay too. But just think about it because, we talk a lot about Warren Buffett, right? And his late partner, Charlie Munger, and how they are the most successful, arguably some of the most successful investors in the world. And one of their great lines I love is that, you buy when people are selling and you sell when people are buying. Well, that means if there's more sellers in the market than there are buyers in the area you're looking at, that's a time that at the very least you want to be looking. Right?
Yeah, dabble.
Right? Let's get out there and take a look. Like you don't need to buy the first thing you see, but certainly get educated because if things evolve here, if you know that the Bank of Canada has said rates are likely going to go lower. So with real estate, it's pretty, simple, right? If you get more purchasing power, you spend more money, right? So rates go lower, you can afford to spend more money. That's what happens. So people bid more. And that's likely what's going to happen. But I get it. It's hard because we're in real estate and we sell real estate. And so it sounds a little bit biased. But if you look at what the experts do and you follow the trends and you follow what's been happening over time, you look at that chart where, February's average sale price, I'm going to pretend like it's in the air, right, is up here, February 2022, and we're kind of down here somewhere. Like at which point do you want to buy? When prices are here or when prices are here?
Definitely down. Yeah.
Right? And so you have to decide what kind of works for you. But I would say you've got to get out there and really educate yourself about really what's going on so you can make a great decision. Otherwise saying, oh, this isn't for me and I'm going to wait, that's where you get kind of late to the market where prices have moved before you can make a decision because you haven't been out there getting educated. And I think that's what you're saying, like get out there and like get in.
Find an opportunity. That's what I'm saying. Find the opportunity in this market because if you can steal a property, now's the time that you're going to find it.
Yeah.
Like there's so much. You're going to find someone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
Once again, it's Elena Saradidis.
And Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And I'm going to say this is part 1 of 2 with Chris Slightham because we're bringing him back to talk all things real estate again. This was Property Playbook. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.